Hey there Cosmic Warriors, and welcome back to another video. And if you are new here, my name is Hannah. I am a Western Practical Astrologer. Okay, so in today's video, we are back, okay? We are continuing on from this selection of videos that I've been creating. So we looked at the history of astrology, and we also explored the origins of the Zodiac. We talked about free will versus fate. We even explored Hellenistic versus modern astrology videos. All the videos will be linked down below, by the way, okay? But I just wanted to come back on and I wanted to explore this question. Who really invented astrology? Though a better way to put it is, where did it truly originate from? And I am, of course, particularly focusing on Western astrology. Stay tuned and find out. But before we do dive into this video today, definitely make sure to subscribe, hit that like button and click the bell. Definitely click the bell, because then you can become notified whenever a new video comes out, even whenever I post a new daily horoscope. And if you are interested in booking a reading with me, then you can visit my website, hannahselsewhere.com. There you can also find my practical astrology ebooks guide and merch. There's also some cheat sheets available. All the links to these products will be in the description box down below. All right, so hopefully I will not keep you here as long as previous. Let's do this. Alright, so just to give some context, I want to refer back to the most recent video I made, The Origins of the Zodiac. In that video, I mentioned a few different key players, and perhaps the most controversial of these was the Anunnaki. Also, Hermes Trismegistus, who appears to be a major key player in the development of esoteric astrology during the Hellenistic period. So to open up this conversation, which of course, feel free to express your own beliefs, your own opinions about this subject. What research have you stumbled on? What research have you done? Because of course I do not know everything, and this is me learning and trying to figure things out as well. But just to open up this conversation, in the recent video, I actually wanted to end the video by mentioning how it is us as humans, it's us who give the stars their meanings, okay? So thinking about the myths and the stories that our ancestors told, that information was passed on. I mean, it is said that Romans adopted gods from the Greeks and applied them to their own version of the gods, so on, so forth. Hermes, for example, was known to the Greeks as Hermes, but to the Romans, Hermes was known as Mercury. Naturally, there will be a new series coming to the channel, which I announced at the end of the previous video. So we're going to be exploring the mythology behind the signs. But then you see, my partner reminded me of the Anunnaki, and I became very, very curious. I stumbled upon the story of the story of the Anunnaki and Nibiru. However, this information linked back to Zachariah Sitchin, who wrote many books about the ancient astronauts. Sitchin attributed the creation of the ancient Sumerian culture to the Anunnaki. However, this is not a fact. And I also mentioned in that video that Sumerian texts describe the Anunnaki inconsistently, and the texts do not agree on what their defined function was. There are historians who would actually disagree with the information I shared about the Anunnaki, such as historian David Miano, he's an ancient historian. Perhaps even British writer Graham Hancock would disagree as well. He apparently said that he does not agree with the ancient alien hypothesis at all. And quite honestly, I'm not really sure if I agree with it either. But I still find the possibility of the Anunnaki to be fascinating. I find ancient aliens to be fascinating, and I do wonder, did beings from other planets or from other parts of space, did they pass on their ancient wisdom and knowledge? Were the Sumerians inspired or influenced by such beings? or other civilizations for that matter. Though, seeing as I bring up the historian David Miano, well, Miano has a YouTube channel titled World of Antiquity, and in one of his videos he talks about the Sumerians. He also talks about the Babylonians, both within the context of the Zodiac, okay? But he explains how the Greeks were influenced by the Babylonians. Keep in mind, in recent videos, I said that astrology was invented by the Babylonians. Now, we could say that this information contradicts with this idea of the Anunnaki, because if the Babylonians invented astrology, well, what about the Sumerians? What about the Anunnaki? And of course, there is speculation that astrology appeared during the Sumerian period before Babylonia. However, there is no evidence to show that the Sumerians had constellations, but it is the imagery that has been interpreted as such. And so, therefore, the celestial divination is generally reported to begin with the late Old Babylonian texts. So again, looking at 1800 BCE, as previously mentioned in the previous video. Other sources also suggest that some of the oldest recorded astrological tablets date back to 2400 BCE. But then according to David Miano, the earliest Babylonian reference to the zodiac is 420 BCE, so looking at the 12 signs specifically. But then toward the end of the origins of the zodiac video, I mentioned how horoscopic astrology is significant to Babylonian beliefs and that they associated the sun, moon, and planets with their gods. They associated the gods with the stars and the planets. And another thing I want to add is that astrology and the calendar were very much connected, and that the theory of the ecliptic is of Babylonian origin. So the 12 constellations, with each constellation measuring 30 degrees, links back to Babylonia. However, this system was not perfected until after the fall of the Babylonian Empire. Now, the Babylonians fell to the Persians in 539 BCE. Now, the Akkadian Empire was the oldest ancient empire of Mesopotamia after the civilization of Sumer. But under the rule of the Amorites, Babylon became the capital and the great empire of Babylonia was established. Essentially here, perhaps you could say that astrology all started within Babylonia, and it was in fact the Babylonians who invented astrology. We are going to talk more about this in just a moment, so stick around. Now, toward the end of the previous video, I also talked about the importance of deities, right? Such as the ancients looking at the Anunnaki and the Babylonians, who believed that their gods' activities influenced their own lives. I also brought up Hermes Trismegistus, who originated as a syncretic combination of the god Hermes and the Egyptian god Thoth, and was a mythological author. So Hermes is the alleged author of the Hermetica, which encompasses a variety of treatises during dealing with astrology, medicine, alchemy, magic, so on. And Hermeticism is a philosophical and religious system based on the alleged teachings of Hermes Trismegistus. Keep in mind the 7 Hermetic principles, which we explored in recent videos, and how one of the 7 Hermetic principles is the principle of correspondence. So thinking about that paraphrase of as above, so below. Now, some researchers suggest that Thoth of Egypt was first and then Hermes of Greece came after, but others would disagree. And this is interesting because I touched on this in the Hellenistic verse modern astrology video versus modern astrology. I explained how Hermes Trismegistus was the Greek name applied to the Egyptian god Thoth, and that Thoth was a reputed author of the Hermetic writings, and that to the Greeks he was identified with the god Hermes. But you see, according to the world of antiquity, Hermes originated from the Hellenistic period. He was a Hellenistic god during the time the Ptolemies ruled Egypt, so around 332 BCE. He is also said to be a synthesis of Egyptian and Greek culture. Yes, Hermes was a well-known Hellenistic figure who originated from the combination of Greek god Hermes and Egyptian god Thoth. Therefore, to the Greeks, he was identified with the god Hermes, but he isn't Hermes or Thoth, he is both. Still, there are those who would suggest that the Hermetica originated from ancient Egypt. But according to sources, the Hermetica did in fact originate in Hellenistic and Roman Egypt. Now keep in mind, Hermes was a teacher of astrology, and many Hellenistic astrologers ascribe its creation to Hermes Trismegistus, and it is said that he wrote several major texts which formed the basis of the art of the system of astrology. But you see, this information was also inherited from the Babylonians and the Egyptians. So around the 2nd century BCE, Babylonian astrology was mixed with the Egyptian tradition of Decan astrology to create horoscopic astrology. Alexander the Great's death in 323 BCE marked the start of the Hellenistic period, and according to ancient/origins.net, earliest Greek text using the Babylonian division of the Zodiac into 12 signs of 30 equal degrees each is the, I will just put the words here. So these words of Alexandria in 190 BC. And whilst the Egyptians refined the Babylonian system, the Greeks shaped it into its modern form. And remember astronomers like Claudius, Ptolemy, and Hipparchus? Ptolemy laid the foundations of the Western astrological tradition, and Hipparchus discovered the precession of the equinoxes. Ancient astronomers would have used equipment like the sundials and armillary spheres. Now, armillary spheres were created by Chinese astronomers, and around 225 BCE, they made an appearance in the West. And around the same time, the early astrolabe was invented in the Hellenistic civilization by Apollonius of Perga, and is often attributed to Hipparchus. Again, if I am mispronouncing any words, I do apologize. Now, before I close off this though, there is one piece of information. So I said I was going to come back to this, but there's one piece of information that I wish to explore when it comes to the origins of astrology. I really want to bring your attention to Babylonian astrologer Riman Kolev. I have stumbled upon a few Babylonian astrologers throughout my astrology journey, if you will. And in his Babylonian Astrolabe book, Kolev writes that there are astrological texts which date back as far as 5,500 BC. I know. Remember earlier I said that celestial divination is generally reported to begin with the late old Babylonian texts in 1800 BCE. Kolev uses observational astrology. So using the naked eye to watch the stars instead of relying on software, instead of relying on a telescope. He also uses the Babylonian sidereal zodiac. Still, there's a huge focus on observing the movement of the stars with one's eyes. And my understanding of this is the ancients would have watched the stars at night, just watch them for so long, many years, okay? They would notice the patterns and the cycles, and then they would even assess, right, how does such a star, rising, how does that correlate with what's happening on Earth? Even just looking at the seasons, okay? Looking at those weather patterns, looking at the best times to grow crops. And it was through their observations that they were able to form those connections and those patterns between events above reflecting events on Earth, also considering what happens within us. And you know how I mentioned the ancient city of Eridu? in my previous video? Well, Eridu is one of the earliest settlements in the region, founded around about 5400 BC during the early Ubaid, I'll put the words here, period. And the oldest astrological texts date back to and align with the first Sumerian temple. Okay, so we're looking at Sumeria here. Now, Kolev says that Babylonian astrology is the astrology of the real sky, using our eyes to observe what is happening above. So looking at the unity between the sky and the earth. Kolev also states that Babylonian astrology isn't just ancient astrology, but it is real astrology. It is the astrology of the golden age. It is living astrology. He also explains that they had knowledge of everything, that they had the same knowledge of everything that we know now, and that when astrology reached the ancient Greeks, they made it more mental, and so it started to lose its living aspect. Oh, and remember Hermes? Well, back in 2018, Kolev traveled to Egypt to see if he could find the lost books of Hermes. And I also want to mention that Babylonian Astrologer, I will insert her name here, okay? But in one of Atasio, so I think it's Crazy Atasio. So in one of her videos, she mentions that astrology originates from Hermes in Mesopotamia. She explains that a ruler from around 5500 BC was the first Hermes that we know of. There was a moment where he was uplifted on a golden throne by the gods, right? Another reference to gods and deities here. And he was given the knowledge of astrology and divination. The magic of the divine was passed on to him. You could say this was some sort of like cosmic download, okay? And then years later, the ancient knowledge was revived. But I was so interested here. I wanted to see if there were other gods who were connected to Hermes around this time. So remember I said that in Egypt, Hermes was known as Thoth, and in Greece, he was known as Hermes. But there is also Nabu, who is said to be an ancient Mesopotamian patron god of the Assyrians. And in Babylonian astrology, Nabu was identified with the planet Mercury. So there seems to be something very significant about Mercury. Keep in mind that Mercury is the messenger of the gods, right? Bringing information down from the heavens to earth. Also consider how Mercury rules writing and the ability to communicate, the ability to pass on information and language. But whilst I said that Thoth was the scribe of the gods, the inventor of writing, well, more information here. According to the British Library, scholars generally agree that the earliest form of writing appeared almost 5,500 years ago in Mesopotamia. Still, as I was saying here, right, Kolev has traveled to find the lost books of Hermes. And so is it that so much ancient knowledge and wisdom has been lost? And so this is why there is very, very little evidence to suggest that astrology started during the Sumerian period. I wonder. Okay then, Cosmic Warriors, so that concludes my video talking all about this question, exploring this question of who really invented astrology and where did it truly originate from. A lot of information today, and I just find going back in time to be really fascinating. Of course, I was not there, okay? So I don't know what happened. But this information is just based on the research that I have done. Do you have any other information you wish to add? Also, let me know if you found this video to be helpful. Did you learn something new? I would appreciate your feedback. And like you, I'm always learning. I'm always willing to learn and to gain different perspectives. And you can, of course, find all of the sources that I used in this video today in the description box down below. Of course, check out the astrologers that I mentioned today. And as always, let me know your thoughts and your opinions on today's video. But with all of that being said, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for subscribing. And of course, if you would like to see more videos from myself and you have not yet subscribed, then make sure that you click that subscribe button and also give this video a like if you did like it today. And I will be back with another video, with another series. I hope you're looking forward to it very, very soon. Bye.